Today I'll be giving you an update on the KSI situation, a part 2 from my last video I've made that was talking about KSI ducking Dillon Danis. Make sure to go check out that video first for full context. Make sure to like and subscribe as well, as I do videos on both internet dramas, lolcows, and stuff around that. But to start where I left off, KSI, I think, same day I uploaded my video on the Dillon Danis situation, uploaded a video talking about the fight card situation and his thoughts and feelings on it, saying this.
I know how this game goes. If I tried to fight and managed to get into the ring and had a performance, no one would care that I was ill. No one would care that I was sick. Everyone would have just looked at the performance and said, wow, KSI struggled against Dillon Danis. He's not that good, actually. Maybe he's overhyped. Like, that's just it. People, you're only as good as your last performance. And I know people would 100% judge me for my performance. So I was just like, you know what, man, my health is so important and I need to focus on myself. So screw it, I don't care what anyone says. I need to just focus on me and I need to get better before I even make any decision about what I'm going to do in the future. So that's where I'm at right now. In terms of when I'm going to be fighting next, honestly, I don't know. There's reasons why I can't say when I could fight next. A lot of the reasons are above me. There's also other things that need to be sorted. But yeah, in terms of my boxing situation, it's been unlucky. It's been like Arsenal. We've been so unlucky with the amount of injuries that we've had, the amount of problems and situations that we've ended up in with the red cards, etc. Like, that's how I feel. I've just been unlucky with the 2 fights in one night and then getting injured, or even back when I was fighting Joe Fournier and I, knocked him out with my forearm, or me losing to Tommy Fury when I shouldn't have lost. Like, it's just been unlucky. Or even, going back to me fighting FaZe Temper when I was meant to be fighting Dillon Danis. I didn't want to be fighting Temper. I could even go back to me doing the 2 fights in one night. Me versus Swarms wasn't meant to be a thing. Me versus Pineda wasn't meant to be a thing. Like, my boxing career, since I've come back, has just been problem after problem after problem, and just being unlucky over and over and over and over again. And it's a shame. It's a shame and it's frustrating, and I know how my fans feel. How do you think I feel? Like, the amount of stress that I've gone through the past few years, even with Misfits in general, like, it's been stressful. Just trying to, make sure everyone is doing well, make sure everyone gets something out of the scene. It's stressful. I feel like I've aged in these 2.5 years of Misfits being created. So where am I in terms of boxing? I don't know. Am I going to retire? I don't know. Am I going to fight again? I don't know. There's just so many things that are just getting in the way. I don't know if any of that made sense. Or maybe I just said a whole lot of nothing. In terms of boxing, from 2022 to now, it's just been complicated. Unlucky. Sad.
Basically says that he has a lot going on and that he's gotten so unlucky with his recent matchups and stuff not going the way he wanted, and on top of all that, with sickness and injuries, then having to do other commitments like rap, soccer, and etc. He has lost a bit of love for the game, and he is only 31, so he could still technically come back and fight in a few years, but who knows? I think the attention span on the internet and what he'll be wanting to do in a few years if he quits will be so different that he'll basically just be done with boxing if he quits now. And what he's been describing with the matchup issues and such is simply just the fight game. People pull out for one reason or another, especially whenever you're a smaller, like, you're not actually a pro boxer, you don't have, like, the best around you. You're probably gonna get injured, you're probably gonna get sickness and stuff, and yeah, sure, you yourself are going to get injured and get upset because you can't fight. That makes sense. This stuff happens a lot in the game. And yeah, if you fought sick, I'd shame you for it because I don't think any fighter needs to be fighting sick. And honestly, I'd be questioning you on your boxing overall because we have seen this too many times recently in MMA where some of the best fighters are coming into fights with a number of sicknesses and injuries and putting on some of the worst performances ever. I do want to see KSI lose, don't get me wrong, but also at the same time, he'd probably put on such a bad performance that would be entertaining, but that's just not what he wants to do. So I don't blame him for pulling out of the fight because he's sick, but what people are blaming you on is that you're just turning around and going out and doing a bunch of different stuff instead of recovering and figuring out a new fight date. And still to this day, there's no new fight date, and maybe that's for a number of reasons that are above him, but still there's like nothing being said now. And it really sucks that KSI has now been on a couple of podcasts such as Haley Welch's and Demetrius Johnson's, and now all that promo that he could have had from going on these is for nothing. KSI originally wasn't doing much, if any, promotion work for this fight. Maybe these podcasts made agreements to release this stuff days before the card dropped. I'm not sure, but still, all these collabs are pretty much useless now. And the way you went about being sick and then going out to concerts is valid for criticism, and it's why people are mainly mad at you. They're more mad that you're going out and doing all this other stuff while supposedly being sick. You just seem like you're lying here. And I still think that you're probably lying. Wade Plemons has made a good response video. KSI and Wade Plemons are both kind of done talking about each other. Wade Plemons is going on to bigger and better things. Partnership with Ring, where he's going to now talk about more mainstream stuff. To be honest, he said everything that he could say. He made a response to KSI, as KSI said some stuff about him in his video, talking about, why he had to get out of the boxing card and stuff from the clips I showed you earlier, and here it is.
Oh yeah, actually, let me get the tweet up. So Wade tweeted this after the fight with me and Dillon Danis got postponed. He tweeted, also for all the shit that was talked about Dillon Danis pulling out of this fight, credit where credit is due. He was going to show up. This event was being carried promo-wise by him. Don't agree with that, but anyway. And I get that KSI is sick, but I gotta give Dillon some credit here. He was ready to go. I don't know, now you gotta remember, Wade has just been jabbing at me for years, constantly. For me, after having to postpone the fight because I got sick, I was pissed. I was angry because I was training myself. You could see that I was training myself. So then, for me to get this illness, and then I was trying to train through the illness, and I got more ill to the point where I physically couldn't train and I physically couldn't fight. It broke my heart. It broke me because I trained so hard for this one moment and I wasn't able to get this moment, and I felt like I trained for nothing. And I felt like I let so many people down, everyone working at Misfits, all the fighters, all the trainers, etc. I let everyone down, and I'm still trying to do it, but I couldn't. And I'm taking antibiotics and it weren't working. I had to take another set of antibiotics. I'm doing everything just to try and get better. I'm not getting better. It's so frustrating. And bro, when I had to, tell Mams and everyone else that I don't think I'm going to be able to do this fight at this date that we were meant to do it. Bro, I broke down, man. I'm there crying, bro. In my room, just crying because, like I said, I felt like I just let everyone down. So then, I go online and I see all this and, people just jabbing at me, and it was just Wade, bro. Normally I just ignore it. But it just pissed me off, and I just lost my man.
While it would be very easy for me to continue doing this thing where I point out little pieces of information that JJ's just completely wrong about. For example, number one, no, I didn't say, yeah, this is a great look for Jake and Mike. That's not what I said. In fact, I did say that Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson was a bad idea for Mike. It was not good. Mike should not take the fight and should not have been fighting, and that Jake was going to hurt him very, very badly. Luckily, that didn't happen. And yes, maybe my affiliation with the card was the reason that it felt like I was, in his words, sucking someone off. And yes, I did have a live stream from the card because I was asked to do so, and it was an opportunity for me and my dad to watch Mike Tyson and other fighters on that card. And if JJ sees it as a, why aren't you as tough on Jake as you are on me type of thing, okay. But at the same time, I do at least try my best to be as unbiased as I can be. And I genuinely mean that. People aren't going to believe it, but it is what it is. I do try that. And in all earnestness, the tweet that he got upset about was not a shot at JJ. And when he says I take shots at him, I disagree. I think if anything, especially in the case of JJ. Now listen, I'm not going to say I'm innocent, that I've never taken a shot at someone. But in his case, I think I've been more than charitable with KSI. In fact, the shots I've taken at him have been return fire for the things that he's said about me. If I've criticized him as a boxer, if I've said that I didn't agree with a certain fight, or I didn't think that he was improving at the same rate as a Jake Paul or somebody else that I would talk about normally, those are just critical things, opinion-based from a commentator that, of course, and we've been through this on this channel, I'm going to say. And that's out of his control. And maybe that's a big problem for him. But the only things that I've ever taken shots at him personally over are when the personal shots were thrown my way to begin with. And I say all that just for clarification, because he talks about me taking jabs for years. That's not been the case. Have I been critical of some things that JJ's done? For sure. Have I been critical of things Jake's done? For sure. Have I been critical of things that Logan Paul's done? For sure. Ryan Garcia? For sure. Conor McGregor? For sure. John Jones? For sure. And that's just a short list. I have opinions on combat sports and combat sports athletes, and I'm going to say this. But this reaction from him, right? The telling of all of the struggles that went into this fight, I knew this. And I said that. When the fight was canceled and he was sick and he was coughing and he was, talking about how hard it was for him, I was one of the first people that said, this sucks. No one can control this. A sickness is not something that JJ's faking more than even I understood they would. So in that respect, I'll man up and say, you know what? My bad. I never meant to come across as hateful toward JJ. Whether it was jokes or anything like that, I honestly never meant to come across like I hated the guy or wanted things to go badly for him. Someone said this, and I do think the guy has a good heart. I just think he's a super emotional guy, wears his heart on his sleeve, and I just think that sometimes he doesn't stop to think, or maybe he doesn't care, but regardless, that the message he is receiving and the way he's deciphering it is the same way that the message was sent.
And Wade kind of predicted it. KSI has too much on his plate, and if he isn't wanting to fight, then he shouldn't, and that's kind of the truth. He is also more interested in these other things like doing Prime and now his new stream idea with soccer. But overall, Misfits is a good creation as it has given smaller creators a chance to fight on a platform in general. I don't know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, whether they're actually good people behind the scenes or what, but they've given people interesting opportunities and made interesting cards. And most impressively on DAZN, a huge pay-per-view platform for boxing. And as a fan of UFC, giving Darren Till somewhere to fight till he comes back to MMA is pretty nice. Although, all of this could have been done somewhere else, so maybe in the end what he's doing wasn't that impressive. Also, I don't see at all where Wade, quote, was putting jabs towards KSI in the Dillon Danis tweet. It seemed like he genuinely was giving the dude who was getting a lot of hate some flowers as he deserved, which is exactly what Wade says in that video. Speaking of Dillon Danis, he's actually talked about this a little bit online. He's been trolling him a little bit, saying, I retired KSI without throwing a punch, and on paper it would kind of look that way. Like 2 canceled fights. Said he ended both Logan and KSI's careers, and Jake is next. I think in MMA, Jake Paul would lose to a submission. Dillon Danis just has way too much grappling experience that Jake Paul tried to take him down or even try to keep him on the feet. Most likely wouldn't work. It'd be like one of those boxer versus grappler type of matchups where the grappler just wins. Jake would probably want to do one of those matches where it's mixed rules, where one round might be boxing, then the next is MMA. Kind of like how Mighty Mouse did with Rod Tang, where they did like one round of Muay Thai and then the next round was MMA. After realizing his Tony Ferguson fight was also canceled, he made a statement saying, bro, I just want to fight, WTF. Being real, I'm frustrated. I wanted to stay as active as possible for myself and for everyone who supports me in 2025. First, KSI canceled on me, then said he wouldn't be fit to reschedule, whatever that means. We couldn't lock in a replacement. I said yes to everyone. I get the criticism. I know what people say about me not fighting. I don't want that to be the narrative, and I've been doing everything I can to change it. I just want to back up everything I've been saying and prove that I'm the best in the world. Sorry everyone. Heart emoji. Then the president of Karate Combat called me with a phone emoji. So maybe Dillon Danis will be doing something there in the future, but he's been on a pretty bad streak of bad luck. I feel like if the UFC was going to do anything, maybe put him up against someone in a grappling match to start, and then maybe bring him into the UFC if he wins it. I don't know, there's stuff that he could do, and I think that he is probably going to go to a smaller promotion at some point, whether Octagon, PFL, or whatever. I think that he's going to try to make that move as soon as possible and try to have a decent run in MMA. But let me know what y'all think of Dillon Danis. Do y'all think he'll do any better in MMA? Do you think he'll go far or what? It was also interesting. You get to see KSI kind of be an actual person instead of an egotistical maniac. The ego thing is one of the most annoying things about him, and it is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like him. Don't get me wrong, I still don't like him, but he isn't as insufferable whenever he's not being egotistical, whenever he's actually acting like a normal person. I think most of these fights are just preparing him for Jake Paul anyway. That is the end goal for both Jake Paul and KSI to fight, and I hope that they get it together soon, and I think it will happen. I think what will happen is Jake Paul will either fight him soon, or Jake Paul is just going to go up the rankings of actual boxing and try to go for a belt. They've already been talking about fighting like Tank Davis and Canelo. He's had all these like huge opportunities for whatever reason possibly come up in the future for him. And if he fails, he could possibly go back towards fighting KSI. But I think that they should just fight in general. I'm getting really sick and tired of waiting all these years. And that's one of the worst things about boxing, is that the politics behind it makes people take forever to actually fight each other. And I think they need to fight before Jake starts that journey, because I think once he starts that, he's going to kind of end his career within the next few years, especially with how long it takes to get boxing scheduled fights. It's going to take him like a while to get some of these bigger fights and get towards that belt. But maybe he gets stopped on the way a couple of times and then has to go fight KSI. Well, we don't know unless we wait. It's the only fight I really do care about in YouTube boxing. I think a lot of other fans are getting fatigued about it. It's not as hyped as it used to be. They just keep talking on Twitter and keep talking about each other, but nothing ever happens behind the scenes. It really should not be this difficult to put up a fight, bro. It really shouldn't. They just need to accept that one of them is going to lose, and they need to both, train and be their best for that fight to happen. KSI also tried to say in his Mighty Mouse interview that Jake Paul or his manager are afraid to set up the fight because if Jake loses, all of his hype is gone. I don't think that's entirely true. Both KSI and Jake Paul have lost to Tommy Fury, and Jake Paul came back with bigger projects, although KSI hasn't really been able to do the same. It still shows that even if they lose, they still have a chance to go do more, but I do think if they lose another time or two with the politics and how the fan base of boxing works, their hype is mainly dead. I don't see KSI coming back well if he takes a few years off. I think if he comes back after a few years, he's not going to do great. He's at the last few years of his athletic life where he's sure he can do those Sidemen charity matches whenever he's 40-something. But whenever you start fighting at 40-something, he's going to start losing, and that's something that KSI does not want to do. He does not want to lose. But overall, combat sports requires a lot of time, effort, and such to get better at it and continue to succeed in. And if you're ready to put the gloves up forever or just for a moment, then you definitely need to. I definitely would just put them up forever and not come back. Because, no one really likes whenever people keep on returning after years. Put your health, your safety, your reputation, and the record on the line. And if you are someone like KSI who hates losing and takes it harshly, you won't want to come back until you're 100% ready. But in the end, all of this stuff is just to go fight Jake Paul. I think he even self-admitted that at one of the events he was at. He was like, yeah, I'm trying to get ready for a Jake Paul fight. And if that's the next fight that he does after a hiatus, I'm kind of tired of the tune-up matches and all that. They just need to go ahead and fight now. I don't care. One of them is going to lose, and I just can't wait to see that fight. I still have the slightest bit of hope that it can possibly happen one day. But I'm also ignorant, so who knows? Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Will Jake Paul versus KSI ever happen? Can we please get Jake Paul versus KSI to happen? Did KSI still duck people? Is he still in the wrong? Did Wade have a point? Do you think he has a future in boxing? If he does, who is he going to go against? The Dillon Danis fight has been canceled twice now, and also Dillon Danis has had a very bad luck streak, as he has now had his GFL fight canceled. But with all that said, thank you for watching. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my other videos if you haven't already. I make videos on locales, internet dramas, and stuff like that. My next video is supposed to be a part 2 to the Wings drama, the Wings of Redemption drama that I made a video on earlier. That one's going to be a bit longer because there is a lot of footage to show in general about the conversation and topic, and you all can pull it apart in the comments like I usually love you all to do. Expect that in the next week, and after that, I'm not exactly sure what I'll be doing next. I have a couple of ideas in mind, but in the end, I'm PERK30, and keep God close.